Good afternoon and welcome to Nice from Education's webinar production today. We are so glad that you were able to join us. As more people continue to join, let me just give you a couple of short directions because everyone has been muted in order to keep down background noise. However, to the right side of your panel, you should see either the word chat or a chat bubble. You can use that to communicate both with me or with the entire audience. And I encourage you to use that anytime you have a question or want to make a comment. And then at today's conclusion, we'll take additional chat questions and possibly even open the mics up so that everyone can speak as well. But we're glad that you could join us today. Today's session is being recorded for future use with additional customers who weren't able to be with us today, as well as some of you may want to go back and revisit something as well. So again, welcome to Nice from Education. Let's get started. Today we're going to be talking about exploring where and why Nice from Education's hands-on program for grades K through 5. I'm Pam Gothard. I'm your Professional Learning Director and glad to be hosting today's webinar with you. I have a cart, but oh my gosh, where do I start? What do I do? That's kind of a common question, especially when a district buys carts and maybe doesn't have a face-to-face professional learning experience planned. So today, that's what I want to do with you, is walk you through getting started with your new resources. I'm going to be using our first grade program today as our base. You can see a picture here of the first grade cart, including its literacy library, and I'll be working from this particular piece throughout the session today. The first place and the best place to start is with your teacher's guide. Your teacher's guide is going to have a lot of information in it, as well as the lesson plans that you'll want to execute throughout the program. So if you haven't yet opened your teacher's guide, you'll want to do that and unwrap your shrink-wrapped pages and get them put into place with all of your tabs. And those tabs are going to play an important role not only in dividing your units, but because they provide additional information. One of the pages you might want to visit in your teacher's guide is this page here, where we show the Exploring Where and Why layout of what all is included in your cart. As you can see, we have our teacher's guide, desk maps, wall maps. We have our floor maps for first grade. We have globes. We have our pieces that go with our floor map, our models of homes and businesses. And we have our literacy library. If you're not sure how many pieces of each of the items you should have in your cart, please visit the Nice from Education website or contact your local curriculum specialist for your state. If you're not sure who that is, please send us a chat question. We'll be glad to direct you. Let's talk about Exploring Where and Why and what it is. What we call Exploring Where and Why is EWW. We use the acronym like many of you do for so many things, especially in education. I think we're probably one of the worst, with the exception of probably the military, for using acronyms. But our Exploring Where and Why program is all about what this little guy here on the left has to say. It's all about hands-on, minds-on. I love that phrase because it is a hands-on activity program, and with being hands-on, it does stimulate the brain and it does cause us to have the minds-on learning. So our minds-on learning, hands-on learning social studies program for the primary grades Exploring Where and Why is designed to meet the needs of all of your students regardless of ability level. The activity-based lessons help to integrate the hands-on approach with reading and writing and other ways through which social studies is communicated to your students. Exploring Where and Why forms the basis of your social studies education. It really helps to develop those essential foundation measures, the skills, the concepts, and the content that's necessary for elementary students. As we all look towards developing our next generation of citizens, we want to develop responsible citizens, active citizens, and that comes through very strong in our Exploring Where and Why program. So while many people perceive EWW as a geography-only series, It really isn't. It incorporates a lot of civics, history, economics, cultural awareness, and a variety of other subjects as well. It really is a cross-curriculum approach to social studies. It also really focuses on helping students to develop a multicultural awareness and sensitivity. It integrates math, science, reading, writing, the performing arts, and the visual arts. It develops critical thinking skills in your students and really works to to meet the needs of your diverse population, ensuring success for all of your students. In our scope and sequence, you'll find that Exploring Where and Why has a spiral approach. Many of the content or skills are introduced in kindergarten. They're repeated again in first, second, and third grade, all with a spiral approach so that each time the students are going deeper and broader and learning more about that same particular content or skill that was introduced in kindergarten. Here we have just a part of the scope and sequence. There are about 4 pages in total. We have civics, we have culture, economics, geography. Take a look at your scope and sequence in your binder. You'll find that in the back of your section, just prior to getting started, will be your scope and sequence. And at the conclusion of your scope and sequence, it will show you the other subjects in which you will be engaging your students, whether it's math and science or a variation of the arts and language arts as well. Each of you have tabs for your binders. The tabs not only separate your units, but they provide you with additional information. So here you can see that I have one of the tabs pulled up as well as the first part of a lesson. Let's talk first about the tab. Your tab includes a lot of information. First of all, the tab itself includes an idea of how much time that particular unit will take you to teach. Here you can see that this particular time frame is 6 weeks. Each of your tabs will indicate the amount of time that will be needed. Each tab also provides you with the lessons that are going to be taught during that particular unit and the page on which they start. Each unit is followed by a unit assessment. Each lesson has an assessment as well. So each lesson has both formal and informal assessments, traditional and non-traditional, and then each unit also has a formal pre-post assessment that can be utilized. At the bottom of your tab, there's an additional resource that includes a variety of books that can be used with that particular unit. As you know, your cart does come with a literacy library that includes 12 different books that encompass a variety of topics that's throughout your particular program. But each tab gives you additional books that you might want to bring in during your language arts period or during your library time. On the back of your tab, you will find a Dear Family letter, something that goes home to the students' families at the beginning of each unit that gives them an idea of what the student will be learning at school and ideas of how they can incorporate and extend that learning at home during that particular unit. These letters are also available in Spanish on our ewwnet.com website, and we'll go there shortly. At the beginning of each unit, there will be a lesson starter. Here I have lesson 4 pulled up. In a unit, you will have 2 to 5 lessons. Each lesson incorporates activities and main goals. The goals are for the lesson itself. Within the lesson, there are 2 to 5 activities. Here we see Activity A. Each of the activities take 15 to 20 minutes. Each is well scripted and easy to follow. I think of these lessons as a grab and go. We all know that as elementary teachers, first you're generalist. You have a lot to prep for, and especially math and language arts we know is where the majority of you have the demand time that has to be allocated. So with Exploring Where and Why, the one thing that you're going to find, not only can you execute our sessions, our lessons in 15 to 20 minute increments, but also that they're scripted out and ready to go, to the point where we give you everything you need at the very beginning. An overview of what the students will be doing, the activities and main goals that the students will be expected to learn during that particular lesson. Each lesson incorporates 2 to 5 activities. So an activity will also have a section for itself, such as a getting started section, where the students begin to focus in on what that particular lesson is going to be giving them instruction on that day. Each activity also includes objectives. So within the lesson itself, the 2 to 5 different activities will have objectives that tie back directly to the goals of the lesson. Also, very important here, in the banners on the left or right side of your pages, you'll find vocabulary, either new vocabulary words or vocabulary words that are being reintroduced. I can't stress to you the importance of vocabulary at the elementary level. Robert Marsano says in some of his research that nearly 55% of the vocabulary that students need to be successful in school comes from social studies. If we fail to provide that essential vocabulary, the students aren't going to be as successful as we need them to be on standardized tests or benchmark tests. So if you find that your students as a whole school, or as your classroom are not doing well in standardized testing, let me encourage you to drill down and see if any of that weakness comes in the area of vocabulary. Also, just reinforcing to administrators and to others in the district the essential role that social studies plays in the elementary school because of this vocabulary. We have to reinforce vocabulary at this early level, or we'll find that deficit even at the high school level. Another important part here in your banner is the materials section. While everything is condensed and on the cart and ready to go, we find that a lot of schools or school districts purchase carts to be shared between 2 or 3 teachers. When they're being shared, it's particularly important for each teacher to know what it is they're going to be using for that particular lesson so that they can work with their colleagues to balance out who is using which pieces in which lesson on that particular day. Our teaching, as I mentioned earlier, is easy to follow. It's step-by-step and very scripted. That's very helpful for those of you who are on time frames and need to be able to produce and give your students a quality lesson that takes a minimal amount of prep time for you. That's exactly what you get with Exploring Where and Why. Minimal prep time, but an active lesson for 15 to 20 minutes that has your students totally engaged in some type of hands-on learning. Also, in your lessons, you'll find that we have everything you need. The questioning strategies you'll be using, the activity sheets that need to be printed will come after the lesson. We have lesson closures, ways to wrap up at the end of each one. So you'll see here we have a summarizing. We're just going back and doing that check for understanding to make sure that the students really were able to understand what it was that we had presented. And we provide ways for you to take it into other disciplines. Our extending opportunities provide ways for you to bring social studies into math, science, visual arts, performing arts, and a host of other areas. And then, at the end of a unit, keeping in mind that a unit consists of multiple lessons, 2 to 5 lessons, with each lesson incorporating 2 to 5 activities. At the end of the unit, there is a formal pre- and post-test that can be utilized. There's also options for informal testing or authentic testing. Also, just as a reminder, that after the units in your teacher's guide, there is a tab that says literacy lessons. There are 15 literacy lessons that can be used at various points throughout your teaching of the year. Don't miss that literacy tab and think you wait until after all of your units are completed before you get to it. You don't want to miss these 15 great lessons. And at the end of each unit, there is an authentic assessment piece. So each unit comes with a closure and opportunities for assessment. Each of you also, as part of your cart, received a literacy library set, 12 books with lessons. Within your literacy library kit, you should see a folder that looks similar to this one here for first grade. Each grade has a different color, and it's color-coded to keep everything in sync with its cart in case some of you share and differentiate with some of your colleagues. It might be that a third grade teacher needs to differentiate using some first grade resources, but because of the color coding and the numbering system that's included on all of our pieces, everybody will be able to easily sort what goes where. Our literacy library for first grade is in this purple binder. When you open it up, what you're going to find is a set of the books listed, and under each book you'll find the units in which they are best designed to meet standards with. Most of them will fit in more than one unit. It's particularly helpful if you're sharing resources. One teacher might opt to present Be My Neighbor in Unit 1, where another teacher might say, okay, you go ahead and use it in Unit 1. I can wait until Unit 2 to use that book. And so you're able to utilize your books effectively and efficiently by using our guide here. You'll also find this in your teacher's guide. Let's say, for instance, you're using the book, The Journey of Oliver K. Woodman. When presenting that particular book, we've provided many different options through which you can present that book. Reading, writing, social studies, math, critical thinking. So even though we offer a very scripted lesson format, we also offer flexibility that you can choose the ways in which you want to incorporate your literacy library. And of course, if you have additional prep time, we encourage you to play with the different hands-on pieces that are part of your cart and come up with your own ways to utilize the globes and the maps and different pieces. Your students can write on all of our maps, our globes, and desk maps. So they are all writable and use water-soluble markers. In addition to your literacy library lessons and the lessons that are in your teacher's guide, we also offer an extended website that provides resources, teaching options, primary sources in many cases, but a variety of resources to engage you even more. I know that a number of you who are online today are first grade teachers, so I'm going to spend a little more time with the ewwnet.com for K through 3, and I will though, however, skim through both Junior Geographer and our History Atlas. For ewwnet.com, this is for K3 teachers, you'll find a variety of informational tools here that can be very helpful. For those of you who are sharing resources, probably the most difficult piece on your cart to share is your wall map. If you look on the left-hand column of this website, in red you'll see the EWW wall maps. I can open that link, and I now have opportunity to use any of the first, second, and third grade wall maps. Let's open one of those up and see what that looks like. Here's map 1A, and you'll note that it is labeled up here in the top corner, just like your maps on the cart are labeled. This is great to use whether you're presenting it just on a whiteboard surface or whether you're using a smartboard. But students enjoy engaging with our wall maps in this format. In addition to your wall maps, one of my other favorite pieces on this particular site is your graphic organizer. It's in the middle column here, and in red says graphic organizers. Here we have just a host of graphic organizers that are blank and ready to be utilized. For instance, if I wanted to look at a Venn diagram, I would have just a Venn diagram template that I could use not only in social studies, but in any of my other subjects as well. So what you'll find on that site is going to be information that is helpful to you as a teacher. Also on the Exploring Where and Why site, for any of you who need some Spanish translations, if you look here in the middle column and right here in red, you'll find the letters home that are on the back of the tabs are printed here in Spanish. We also have unit tests from EWW that are in Spanish at that link also. We also provide and sell a variety of our resources in a Spanish translation. Should you need any of those, let me encourage you to reach out to your state curriculum specialist from Nystrom Education, and he or she can help you with that. Remember, if you have any questions about that, please do send it to me in the chat box. If you're a 4th grade teacher, your website is juniorgeographer.com. And you'll note that you can enter either the English version or the Spanish version, and they have the same material as what we saw or what is in the other translation. In Junior Geographer, you have additional maps, graphs, images, and research links, websites that have been tested and proved to be safe for children. Let's say, for instance, we want to look at maps. Here, I see that on my screen, I now have the maps icon pulled up, and I have U.S. and world. Within the U.S., I have reference maps, outline maps, thematic maps, and regional maps. I have similar choices for world. Here, within the reference maps, look at under the thematic maps, look at the different ones that I now have available to me, and I can look even then at a population map of the United States. This is just one of the many, many different resources that are in Junior Geographer. Our History Atlas is for our 5th grade. If we open our History Atlas, again, we see the same design as what we saw for Junior Geographer. Let's look at graphs this time. Here, we look at graphs, and we can see that for graphs by unit within our program of study, we have a variety of titles. If I open Unit 2 for Colonial America, I now have a variety of graphs from which to choose to engage my students even more. Here, I have an increasing population from 1610 until 1770. Think of all the different questions that you could utilize and design for your students using this graph, and how these graphs and maps help to provide that informational text that your students need. Back to your teacher's guide. In your teacher's guide, you will find a sheet that says Classroom Management. Here are some great tidbits for how to keep your resources clean and how to have them distributed and picked up at the end of each lesson. So everything that you need to know about executing your new Exploring Where and Why resources will be found here in the teacher's guide. I appreciate you joining us today. I hope that this has been a helpful overview of the resources that you have access to. If you need to watch this webinar again, or if you'd like to share this webinar with some of your colleagues, it will be available within the next 24 hours at nystromeducation.com/learning.